Hi, and welcome to the Thriving and Surviving podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Markson, and I'm a mum, an entrepreneur, a coach, and most importantly, I'm someone that loves to make waves, break stigmas, and challenge beliefs. Think of this podcast as a wine and cheese night with your besties, sharing your deepest and darkest thoughts and struggles, but also learning a thing or two. So whether you're thriving or just surviving, this podcast is here to enlighten you, heighten you, and most certainly brighten you. So let's dive right in, and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome to season 3 of the Thriving and Surviving podcast. This is episode 1 of the new season. So this episode is going to be a little bit of a recap going into, this year's been wild. 2024 has been the craziest, most turbulent, stressful, all of the things year I think I have ever had. And for my friends listening to this that knew what I was like as a teenager, that is absolutely saying something. So I'm going to do a little bit of a recap, and it's tricky because I feel like I could probably do 10 episodes on everything that has happened this year, but I'm going to condense it down. So this season's obviously going live in 2025. So I'm just going to bring you up to speed for the last year because I did try and relaunch the podcast in 2024. And I was like, I'm diving in. I've got the time. I can commit to this. And then I started and was like, no, I can't. No, I cannot. So I ended up just pumping the brakes, pulling back, and look, 2024 was surviving, and I'm hoping 2025 is going to be thriving. But it has just been a year of trying to stay afloat. So obviously Tommy and I separated in December the year prior in 2023. So I did do a little bit of a podcast episode in season 2 when I was sort of kicking it off again, where I touched on a few things, but it was still very chaotic. And I still feel like even now I've got to be so conscious and careful of things that I say, because I definitely don't want to seem like I'm, saying anything negative about him. Because look, one day the girls might listen to these podcast episodes. So I am very conscious. So I will tactfully bring you up to speed with where that is at. So I can actually file for our divorce this month, which is exciting, because we obviously have to be separated for the 12 months before we can file for divorce, which we're going to do. And I don't think I'll have any road bumps with him happily signing that. We did do our property settlement this year, which for anyone that has gone through a property settlement before, it's not fun. And I think, on a scale of 1 to 10, we navigated it quite well. I'm going to say it could have definitely been so much worse. I'm very grateful that him and I managed to come up with something that we could both live with between us. So then once we got lawyers involved, it was wasn't as expensive because we weren't fighting each other in court. We weren't having to do the lawyers do all of the back negotiations, which it costs a lot. But even then, just with us agreeing on, what I was paying him out, because I kept the house, we decided that was best for the kids, for them to have that consistency and the stability. We didn't want to have to sell the house and upend them and move everything. So I stayed in the house. So it meant me refinancing, borrowing money off my dad and the bank so that I can buy him out of the house. And we agreed on an amount. And then by the time we went to the lawyers, I said, we've agreed on X, Y, Z. They got the signatures, filed it through court. And we did get that all wrapped up. But it is just, property settlement is just so hard because it's not like there's equal contribution. Maybe in some dynamics there is, maybe, but for us, we didn't have equal financial contributions during the relationship. Obviously, I've worked more, and Tommy's had a lot of time off with his injuries from having his foot amputated. So the financial contributions weren't even I'm still the one that was the primary carer for the kids. So and they're taking into account future needs of the kids. And I obviously have the kids more than he does. So, the court sort of tried to take into account everything to make sure that, what we'd agreed on was still fair in both of our best interests, I suppose. So, yeah, it was tricky. But I do think we definitely did our very best to try and put our personal emotions aside as best we could, which is hard to do, in a relationship breakdown, because everyone is sort of hurt and angry. And, I know that I think we were both feeling unappreciated, and yeah, it was messy. It was messy. But I mean, I've seen some other people's, and I mean, it could be 1,000 times worse. And I've said this from the beginning. I am very glad that neither Tommy nor I are malicious people. Like, we might do things that upset the other person or piss the other person off, but neither of us are actively going out of our way to do that. And that matters. Like, that makes a difference. So I think we're navigating it pretty well. In the beginning of the year, I won't go into it, but I'll just say for personal reasons, Tommy wasn't having care of the girls. He wasn't really able to. But now, we've got a solid consistent care arrangement going on. And since we've put that in place, he's been consistent, which, I did highlight that's really important for the girls, because it's been a huge adjustment for them. They're not the sort of kids that, would just clung to mum and didn't really have a relationship with dad. They've always been dad girls. And because I did do the shift work and the nights, Tommy was used to having them on his own, and they were used to spending a lot of one-on-one time with him. So when they didn't have that, it was really disruptive for them. And I mean, Chili was only 1, and you could still see it with her that, she missed her dad. So I'm really glad that we've got a consistent care arrangement. We haven't gotten we haven't formalized it. It's not a court ordered care arrangement, because so far we've pretty much been in agreement. So we haven't really felt that it's been necessary to spend the time or the money at this point on formalizing one, because it's also expensive. But at the moment, he is having the girls, so he picks them up from daycare on a Friday afternoon. He has them Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, and then he drops them to daycare on the Tuesday morning. And he does that every second weekend. And while he has them, I do 4 back-to-back night shifts at the fire department, which is great, because it means, I can do a heap of hours, because it's obviously 14-hour night shifts, so they're long, plus I've got the hour travel each way, so it means that I can work a lot, and then the other weekend I just get to spend that time with the girls then, which is really good. The downside, and I guess this is something that I definitely feel like he wouldn't understand this, but I am either at work or I have the kids every single night of my life, whereas I feel like the whole, oh, I've got them, you get a break. But when you're just living at work, it's well, that's not actually the same thing as being able to go do things with my friends or go to the beach or whatever that might be. It's a eat, sleep, work, train, repeat. That's all I have time for those 4 days. And then I pick the girls up again, and then I have them all week. And then through the weekend, the next week, I'm still doing a Thursday day shift at fire. And I mean, Thursdays are crazy. So for us to make the Thursday day shifts work, I have to get up at 4, get everything ready to go. The girls get up at 5. We're in the car leaving home by 5:30. We drive an hour to the north side. They then go to a daycare on the north side for 10 hours while I do a 10-hour shift, pick them up from daycare. Then we've got to go through somewhere for we do a drive-through takeout dinner, because I'm not organized to pack it and cook it at work for the car. So we just get something, because they fall asleep in the hour drive back home again. We get home at, 6:30. I transfer them into bed, put everything away. By that point, it's 8 o'clock at night, and then I'm finally going to bed. So that's what our Thursdays look like. So it is chaos. It is absolute chaos. Whereas, the other days of the week where I'm coaching and I've got clients, there's that degree of flexibility there. where I can, map it around the girls. They're not having to get up at 5 a.m. I mean, let's be real. They get up at 5 a.m. anyway. They're early risers, but I have that degree of flexibility there, which even just for me feels lighter. So because of that, 2025, I'm really leaning into my coaching. So I've put a new, I'm waiting to hear back, but I've applied for a new roster with work where I'm not going to be doing that chaotic Thursday day anymore. So I'll be dropping my hours down a little bit. So that'll free me up to be able to do a little bit more coaching, just because it is too big of a day for the girls. Like, it's not really working when we live so far away from where I work at the fire department. So I'm dropping that back. I'm also going to be doing some PTing out of the Club Lime at Victoria Point, which is exciting because I haven't done in-person training since COVID times when we shut down all the Train with the Girls gym. So I'm really excited to get back in and be working, doing some more face-to-face work with clients, running some different coaching subscription options through there. Just because obviously with coming back to that property settlement, I obviously paid him out the house, but now I am the proud owner of a very expensive mortgage solo, and I took over all of the debt from our relationship. So bills are high, pressure is high. And then obviously because he has, his disability, he hasn't been working. So, I haven't got child support or anything like that. So it is just all on me. So it has definitely felt crushing, the pressure this year, because it was unexpected in a way, the end of our marriage. We obviously knew things weren't flash, but I wasn't expecting no notice up and leave. So for me, I didn't really have things in motion yet to be able to absorb all of the costs of what was a 2-income household and then suddenly a 1. So it definitely was a scramble, the first half of the year, which was very challenging when I was obviously still emotionally processing a lot, because whilst it was the right decision, and I've said that to Tommy, like, there is no part of me that holds any sort of resentment for you ending the marriage whatsoever. Like, we weren't happy. It was absolutely the right call to make. And I'm relieved that he made it, because I don't know if I would have been able to pull the trigger. I feel like I just held so much guilt thinking that I was breaking up our family and the impact on the girls, and like, it was just eating at me. So I'm glad that he kind of took that burden off me. But again, like, I'm just a bit of a control freak and I like to plan. So the unexpectedness of it threw me a lot. And then, I am still grieving the marriage, I suppose, not in a wishing that we were back together way, but just in this, it's so hard to explain. It's almost like the life that I had planned for myself and for the girls. And it's been like I don't want to say 360 pivot, because then that just 360, you're going back to where you came from. So we'll say like a 180 pivot. It's just completely different. Like, I never envisioned myself as a single mum with this much responsibility, because I didn't realize what it was, maybe, because even when we were falling, when I decided to have Callie and Chili, I was like, oh, even if things don't pan out, like, we'll probably do 50-50, like, it'll be split, it'll be fine. And then it hasn't been that. And I think even as having kids in general, like, I didn't have much exposure to kids before I had kids. I did not know how hard it was. And then layered on top of that, I had no idea how hard it was to be a single mum. Because look, I'm going to say it, like, mums carry more of the mental load and do more of the parenting. They just do. For whatever reason, they do in majority of situations. But for me, it felt different. Like, it landed different having someone where I felt like they were still in the trenches with me. Like, I wasn't alone. It was, even if I was getting up all night to the kids, I could crawl back into bed next to someone and sort of like cry or vent or whatever it was. Like, I felt like I had that person there that's like, like, you're doing great, you can do this. I don't know, like, that I felt that bit missing the most, where it's probably the most isolating experience I have ever had. And that's not to say that I haven't got support. Like, my friends and family have been incredible this year, particularly in the beginning of the year when Tommy wasn't having care and I was still having to try and make all of these night shifts happen just so I could keep the house. Like, it was really rough. So it's not that I didn't have the support, but just that the person that equally shares the burden with you support, because when I had everyone else helping, there's always this degree of guilt attached to it, because to me, I'm kind of like, oh, like, I'm so appreciative and this isn't your responsibility and you're helping me anyway. And I'm grateful, but I still feel guilty and terrible. Whereas when it's your partner, you don't have that guilt, because it's like, well, like, this is your shit too. These are your kids too. So I don't have that guilt attached to them stepping up and doing their share, because I mean, so they should. So transitioning, I mean, I had to let people help initially. Like, it felt icky. I'm not the best at accepting help. So I was at a point where I really didn't have a choice. Like, I had to accept the help. And that was a really hard pill to swallow. And Maddie gave me many a pep talk about letting people show up for me, and the girls. And I feel like, look, it's brought me and the girls closer together. It's brought my friends and family closer with the girls, because they've obviously spent a lot more time with them, with helping. But yeah, it's been rough. And as someone that loves to have a lot of control, I definitely find co-parenting tricky, because when they're at Tommy's or at their dad's, he has the right to parent his own way, providing, you know, they're cared for and they are safe. He can parent his way. He's their dad too. And there's definitely certain areas and topics that him and I have different parenting views on. And when we were all in the same household, you know, I really pushed, like, we need to compromise or negotiate. Like, we need to be on the same page to have this consistency for the kids. And we had that. Whereas now it's like, well, dad's rules at dad's house and mum's rules at her house. And with the girls so young, I think it is still tricky for them learning what's what where. Because even Callie yesterday, I told her she couldn't do something and she's like, well, dad lets me. And I was like, yeah, but you know, daddy doesn't make the rules at this house. Mummy does. And then she says, like, the things that she comes out with where she's like, well, if you don't let me, I'm going to go tell my dad and he's going to smack your bottom. And I'm like, he's not. And I mean, like, she's 3, she's going to be 4 in February, which is absolutely insane. So she'll be starting kindy. And she is so clued on that it both impresses and terrifies me. And Chili is going to be 2 this weekend. So she's 2 in the December. So it's kind of like, I don't have like she still calls herself my baby and always will be, but not having like that baby anymore. And I was just reflecting on this the other day. It is so much easier now than 12 months ago, when, like, with Chili only being 1 versus her being 2 and then being that little bit older and that extra independence. Like, my God. So if there's any mums listening to this, or single mums or partnered mums, whatever, and you've got young kids, it really gets every month even, it's just getting easier and easier. And I'm so grateful, because the start of the year was definitely like I don't think I can do this, but I have no choice. So I'm very relieved that it feels bearable now. It is by no means easy, and I don't know if I'm just getting used to the chaos maybe, or it's getting easier. I actually can't really tell at this point, but whether it's column A, column B, or a little bit of both, it's feeling better. Like, I feel like I can breathe that little bit. This is doing something weird. There we go. And then obviously I also competed, which in some ways was insane. When I spoke to Alicia. So I used Alicia to bounce, because I decided I was going to prep myself.
just because I think I'd be the world's worst client. I'm just very particular. I know how I like to do things. And I was like, well, it's also a cost I wouldn't actually have as well by doing my own coaching. And I was like, I'm just going to prep myself. But Alicia, I hit her up and was like, you're happy for me to use you as a sounding board just so if I'm doing anything crazy or being too hard on myself or too soft on myself and losing a little bit of that objectivity, pull me up. She's like, yeah, happy to. And then obviously she could do my pinches for me. So I was like, cool. Like I just need that objective data, because for those of you that have prepped before, you know how easy it is to just get in your head and spiral a little bit. So I just needed, that outsider person. And I said to her, look, I'm going to do this show. And she was like, is that a good idea? She's like, you're learning to be like a mum on your own. You've got these little kids, like you're postpartum. You've got all of the things where Tommy were not flash at that point. She's like, do you think you've got the bandwidth for this? And I was like, to be honest, if I was you, I would say the exact same thing to me. And a part of me is honestly wondering the same thing. Maybe I am insane for wanting to continue to do this. But for me, at that point, I felt like I had no control over anything. It felt like I was at Tommy's mercy of picking up the pieces from his decisions. Everything was how he wanted to do things. It felt like I had no power at all. And back when I first got pregnant with Callie, I was like, okay, I'm going to have 2 kids, this sort of time with apart. Like this is when I'll be postpartum. This is when I'm going to start prep. I'm going to do that show. And through my pregnancies, through my postpartum for the last, what would have been 4.5, nearly 5 years, I've had that date in my mind. And when I was pregnant and having those days where I was, struggling with my body a little bit, or when I was postpartum and whilst I was still like, yay, body, like you're so good, you give me these healthy kids, I was like, I don't feel like me. I don't love how I feel, love my body, don't love how I feel. And I held on to that. I was like, do you know what? Like it might not be right now, but in 2024, you're going to be doing these shows, you're going to prep again, you will feel like you again. And I held on to that for years. And then when we actually got to it, I obviously was not expecting for my entire world to be tipped upside down right before I was going to start a prep. But I was like, no, I will not let him take this from me. I feel like it will do more good than harm, me having that to hold on to that's just mine, to ground me, to give me something just for me to focus on and work towards in a completely chaotic environment where everything else in my life was revolved around the kids and revolved around him. So I was like, nope, I am pushing through. I told her why, and she's like, all right, well, let's go. And look, was it a perfect prep? No. Did I struggle not being able to give as much as what I have in preps previously when I didn't have kids to work around, let alone being a single mum on my own? Yes, it was absolutely fucked, some of it, to be honest. But I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a whole episode purely just around comp itself and what that was like, what I learnt, because I learnt a lot. So yeah, that'll be one of the future episodes. I'm actually going to dive all the way into that. But that was also a big part of 2024 was, having prep to hold on to and work towards. And for the most part, it was really important, I think, for me. And then, as everyone pretty much knows, I also spent a lot of 2024 in a new relationship. So it was definitely very unexpected. I was at a very emotional, horrible sort of point. And I, did the typical, like, I'm never getting in a relationship ever again after Tommy, because I was very angry. I was very bitter. I was very burnt. I was all of the things. But I'm also someone that I love meeting new people. I love making connections. I do it quite easily. I know it explodes Maddie's brain a little bit when she's looked at, my Tinder apps and she's like, how are you having so many conversations? But I am a very social person. So I was like, do you know what? Like, I'm just going to I'm just going to go on a couple dates maybe, and I'm just going to see how it feels. And I actually did in the last season, I went through and actually did an episode about one of the dates that I went on, which despite the fact I was ready to nerve vomit was a really positive experience. And then I ended up going on like a second date with someone, and him and I are actually still friends, which is great. He's an absolute vibe. So we had sort of dates, but right around that time, I think it was like my third person I went on a date with, I met Brent, and him and I worked together at the fire service. So that was a little bit of a because, I've been with the fire service for coming up to 12 years now, and I've never dated a firefighter. So it definitely was something that I was conscious of when we were navigating that. And he was very aware as well of the things that I was trying to process and deal with in my life with juggling with the kids, the divorce, the property settlement. Like, it was stress. So for me, I was kind of like, why do you want to date me? Like, my life is so chaotic. You're insane for it. But yeah, we spent the majority of the year in a relationship, and there's definitely points where I'm in some ways, like, I'm not even sure how I would have got through this year without him. Like, he was one of my, look, aside from Maddie, let's be real, but one of my biggest hype girls with, prep, and the support, I suppose, that I felt through that, because it's not, he didn't know much about bodybuilding. And for anyone that's had partners prep, like, it does put a strain on your relationship. So, kudos to him for pushing through with the prep. And then probably just listening to me whinge about anything and everything all year. And yeah, I think it got to a point, not that long ago, only a couple of weeks ago, just where I still feel like I'm not complete. I feel like I only have this small part of me available to give in a relationship. And when I'm someone that normally, like, I give everything, like, I'm a all-in kind of girl. There's nothing I won't do for a partner. I'm constantly going out of my way to make them feel loved and appreciated. And it was so, I did not love knowing that this person that was, showing up for me, doing all of these things, he was great with the kids, that he was only getting like 40% back of me. And whilst he doesn't know what 100 looks like, to know the difference, there was definitely guilt for me on knowing that. So we sort of just got to a point where I was like, you mightn't realize you deserve better, but I know you deserve better. And like, that's not really sitting good with me. Particularly when, a lot of the things that I'm pushing into for 2025 is going to take up even more of my time, with the coaching and still trying to navigate everything with the girls. So I was like, I think I just need a year where I can be selfish where I put my energy, I suppose. That probably sounds terrible, but selfish where I put my energy. I feel like I can just feel it in my gut that I need it to go into the girls. I need it to go into the business. I need it to get to this point where I can breathe again, because trying to do all of these things at the same time, it feels like I'm operating, I just can't do 100%. And I don't like that. Like, I'm someone that likes to do things and do things well. And if I can't do it well, I would rather wait and time it at a point where I can. So that's pretty much where everything is at dating wise. That being said, like, I'm on the apps. I'm on the apps because, again, I like the talking. I like the connection. I am still unsure about how I feel with dating, because I did go on a date and it was a horrible experience, which has got me like, about whether or not I want to dip my toes in there or not. I mean, I'm sure other dates are way better than this one. This one was just, I forgot that there's still men out there that just pressure you to have sex like that. It was like, yeah, it was not good. And for me, when I've got a mile-long list of triggers in the intimacy space, like I was so freaked by it. It was not fun. So I was like, okay, maybe we will not do that again. And I think because I had just come off the back of, having such a positive, maybe that's another episode in itself. I might have bread minds, but like, yeah, I grew a lot in that sort of realm during our relationship, which was really cool. And I'm also very grateful for. But yeah, I think I forgot. Of course, Maddie's trying to call me while in mid-episode. No, hun. I just hung up on her. So if you're listening to this, Maddie, source girl. Yes, it was a really terrible dating experience. So I definitely don't want another one of those. So might just bench that for a hot minute and just cool the jets and, yeah, chill in that space. I'm also, so when Tommy left as well, like obviously him being a builder, there is 1 million half-done renos over the house, and I do not know much about renovations and trades and electricals and plumbings and tiling, and I do not know any of the things. So I've been spending thousands of dollars trying to get all of these renovations finished on the house, because I am going to be selling it at the end-ish of 2025, just because I borrowed a lot of money off my dad in our property settlement and to get these renovations finished. So I need to obviously pay him back. So I do need to sell it. I don't know if I'm going to move closer to fire, if I'm going to stay in the area. I am so torn, because I absolutely love the mum community that I have over in Bayside where we are. I love the school that, Callie's been accepted into, and it's a feed from the kindy she's in. All of our friends are there. So I don't know. I'm very torn, but I just don't love the hour-long commute heading up to the north side either when I do the fire shifts. So I don't know what I'm going to do there, but I would like to downside, because as much as I'm absolutely thriving being with the mowing, it's great for my tan, it's great steps. It's a lot keeping on top of like a full, it'll be a 5-bedroom, 2-bathroom once it's finished, when it's just sort of the three of us. So yeah, I haven't worked out exactly what we're going to do, but step one's definitely to get all of these renos finished. So the builder, though, the carpenter that's been doing all the chippy work for me, he has been incredible. He's actually one of the dads of the Callie's daycare friends, and he's got a carpentry business. So hey, if you need a chippy, drop it down and I'll happily plug him in. He's been wonderful. But yeah, it's been stressful. And Tommy was around the other day and he was sort of, commenting about some of the things that, he wants done differently or to do with the renos or weren't done right. And I just burst into tears and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. And so he's like, so he's going to hopefully help give a little bit more guidance in that space, because obviously when he started all of these renos on the house, I was not anticipating being left with all of the renos on the house, because it is not my field. But I'm learning things, and I feel like 2024, whilst it's been all of the things, I definitely feel like I've learned so many new skills. I own a toolkit now. I can use an impact drill. I am mowing, which I know sounds ridiculous, but I think maybe mowed once in my life. But I'm like when I was maybe 19, I always paid someone, and I actually really enjoy it. But there's all these like little skills, those sorts of skills that I suppose I've always relied on a partner to do. I'm going to be building a push bike for the first time today for Chili's birthday. And it's been really empowering, to be honest. Like that whole don't need no man kind of thing. You're like, well, do you know what? Like I actually don't. I can do all of these things. And if for some reason I can't, I can call my dad. So Dad's been incredible. I am so grateful. He's been helping me with so many of the man tasks this year, which yeah, I am very grateful for, and a lot of babysitting. So he's retiring next year. So I'm like, don't worry, like I will keep you busy, which is really good. But it has been definitely a year of growth, because from the beginning of the year, I legitimately feel like I hit rock bottom. Like it was dark. It was not flash. And I was so resentful that I didn't even have the luxury of being able to have a mental breakdown, because I had the kids full time then. And I was like, this is just rude. Like, I just want to spiral. I just want to buy a one-way ticket somewhere, go shave my head, like do some unhinged shit. And instead I was like, nope, I've just got to parent and be responsible and pay the bills and hold it together, because they're struggling and they're little people. And if I need to keep my shit together at the very least for them, or at the very least until they go to bed, and then by all means, like, let's just lay on the kitchen floor and cry, but at least hold it together until after 7:30. So going from where I started this year at, which was that, plus a lot of therapy, plus I was back on anxiety meds, just trying to get through the day. Fast forward to like the end of the year now, other than the fact that I'm not medicated, I mean, I still see a therapist because they're amazing, but I feel like it's doable, and I'm feeling like the place I'm at now is the place that I hoped existed at the beginning of the year. I was clinging to dear God that, you know, this will get easier, this will feel better, you definitely won't feel like this forever. And I didn't know that, but I was like, I had to believe that, I think, to be able to push past the shit. And I am very relieved that it did exist, and I am now there. And I feel like this is a really good takeaway, because you can apply that to anything, whether it's, you know, a goal, whether it's a fitness goal, like things that are shit personally, whatever it is clinging to that just because it feels like this now does not mean I'm going to feel like this forever. Just because I'm here now doesn't mean I'm going to be here forever. If you're wanting to not be doing what you're doing or feeling how you're feeling, buckle up and do the work to move towards whatever destination it is that you're wanting to get to. And for me, it was to just feel like I could manage my life. I needed to feel in control. I needed to feel empowered. I needed to feel like I still had a little bit of choice. Like, obviously you don't have full flexibility once you're a parent, but like some degree of choice in the direction of my life, and not to be at someone else's mercy on whether they would take the kids or whether they'd pay for the kids, whatever that. I was like, no, like I'm just going to make choices where I can manage with no one else, so I don't have that unsafe feeling that someone's going to let me down and destabilize my day or my week or whatever that looks like. So that's what I've been doing this year, is I've worked so much so that I can get to a position where I'm good. I've got me. I've got the girls. I can do this completely solo if that's the case. And it's enabled me to just like breathe out. So yeah, it's been growth. 2024 has been growth, but I'm ending the year where I've never felt more capable, I'd say, in my life, and proud that I pushed through, because there was definitely days, and like Maddie's listened to a lot, where I'd call and be like, I'm done. Like, I'm not strong enough for this. And she's like, yes, you are. And I was like, I'm not though. She's like, well, you don't have a choice. And I was like, I know. So it's nice to not feel that, at least as frequently anyway. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. That was a pretty big nutshell. That was like an acorn. But anyway, that's pretty much a wrap up of 2024, where things are at. And then going into 2025, I am really excited, because if 2024 was anything to go off, the fact that I'm going to be starting the year not at rock bottom, I'm really excited to see where things are going to be at in 12 months' time more. So thank you for tuning in. Welcome back. I'm not going to ghost again. I promise. The seasons are all ready to go, and I am very excited for our season 3 of the Thriving and Surviving podcast.